Welcome back to Blackthornprod and to another devlog video on the progress I make on my puzzle platformer game. This is the fourth episode in this series, and I'm really happy to say that in the 3 weeks since I released the first, my game has been really taking shape, and I can feel it slowly but surely coming to life, every week getting closer to completion. Just before starting though, here's a huge thank you to Joseph, Couch Ferret, and your brother for their amazing support on Patreon. Anyway, it was quite a relaxing week. Most of my time was spent working on art and animations. Last week, many levels looks like this. Just a bunch of bland rectangles cobbled together. That was just for me to quickly sketch out levels and test them out. But obviously, navigating a world that looks like this is boring and quite uninteresting. So I took the time creating nice looking platforms, environment pieces like trees and clouds, twisted monsters and more. In case you don't know, I used Adobe Photoshop to make all of my art. Usually my characters and environments are made in a very cartoony art style. With this project, I've been edging away slightly from that, in an attempt to make the world feel more atmospheric. Now currently the project is made up of dozens of levels, and so making the art for each is pretty time consuming. Sure, I try and reuse assets on multiple levels, like certain platforms and clouds, but I'm also trying to add at least one unique thing per level, so hopefully it stays in the player's mind and also keeps him engaged, always wondering what might be in the next. So either there's a special environment piece never seen before, like a twisted tree with what seems to be multiple arms, or a monster tree with sharp deadly teeth, or a spooky ceiling made up of toothy creatures. Or I play around with colours, each scene changing tint slightly, from golden yellow backgrounds to cold blue skies, to levels with a dangerous blood red atmosphere. So yeah, the bulk of what I did this week is in the level art for the reveal levels. And again, this took time because I had to make two versions of each object in the scene, so that when the reveal trail hovers over it, something new and scary is shown. The sky turns a slightly different colour, blue or white trees turn to black, and so on. I also played around with an interesting interaction. I basically turned monsters and platforms into sprite masks, so that when the trail hovers over them, they sort of become invisible, merged into one large sprite mask shape. And this forces the player to be a bit more careful with where he moves his trail, because if he isn't, then he might hide from view a dangerous obstacle and run right into it. I also prototyped some levels where the player must not reveal certain things. If he does, he'll lose. So for example, if the trail touches these circles, then they'll transform into some monster and charge at him or something. Again, this forces the player to watch out where he moves his trail. Other than that, I also worked on the art of some black and white levels. Again, trying to make each feel unique to keep the player on his toes and not bore him. And again, this is just the first pass I'm making on these levels. I definitely intend to go back in and add particle effects and a few nice details to each, to make them feel more lively and interesting. I must admit, I'm feeling really good about the game currently. As I like to say, motivation comes with momentum. The more I work and add stuff and make progress, the more happy and motivated I feel. If you feel demotivated or lazy, also just try this. Set yourself the task to work on your projects for half an hour. Just 30 minutes of pure game dev with no distractions, and if you succeed in doing that, reward yourself with something. For example, watch an episode of a TV show that you're really enjoying, or play a game or read a book. That's what I did to get that momentum. I rewarded myself for making progress. So I would set myself the task to work for 1 hour at the start of the week, and then read a chapter of A Song of Ice and Fire, or played a game of Downwell or Isaac. And this felt really good. Working on my game no longer felt daunting like it sometimes can. And guess what? Soon I was happily creating for 2 to 3 hours at a time, because of the progress I was clearly making, which pushed me forward. Anyway, the last thing I did for my game this week was added some appeal to the player character's death. So in the reveal levels, when he dies, a sprite mask splash of blood appears on screen, as well as a burst of white particles that collide with their surroundings. I also got the camera shaking a bit to make the death feel more impactful. Of course, the player just respawns immediately at the start of the level again, but still, having something a bit more dramatic than him just popping out of existence feels nice. I'll of course need to work on scene transitions later down the line. As for the black and white levels, their death is roughly the same, except there's no sprite mask blood. Oh, and you might have also noticed that I changed the key to a twirling portal shape. This is what the characters must reach to complete a level. And I also added a nice gold particle effect when the player collides with it, again, so it looks a lot more appealing than him just vanishing with nothing. So yeah, a good week. I could have made more progress, but a lot of my time was also spent finishing up the second Blackthornprod Udemy course. I launched a whole video about it on Thursday, but for those who don't know, in short, it's 4 hours of tutorials aimed at complete beginners, and that teaches them how to make their first game using Unity and C#. The link to check it out is in the description. For now, we've got a 5-star rating, which is pretty awesome, and yeah, me and my bro are very proud of it. We really did our best with this one, and the explanations can be clearer, so if you have trouble learning how to code or just finishing a game, definitely give it a try. With that said, my plans for next week regarding my game are as follows. I want to make a lot of art by turning these boring and ugly looking levels into nicer, more interesting scenes. I need to do so for a few simple black and white levels, as well as with all these switching levels where the player can swap the environment's colors. That in itself is going to be a big job. Perhaps I'll also prototype a few more levels with the reveal mechanic if I find the time. I'll also try and figure out what style I want for the cutscenes to help tell the game's story. Sure, a lot of the story will be told through the environment and with some NPCs and their dialogue, but I think small cutscenes will be a neat add-on. Now, whether I'll try and animate everything for those or simply make static images the player flips between remains to be seen. Anyway, that will mark the end of this week's devlog episode. Thanks so much for watching, and here's also a big thank you to these people for supporting me financially via Patreon. You guys are awesome. Just before leaving, remember that I'm hosting the second Blackthornprod Game Jam from the 23rd of February to the 2nd of March. This is an epic event where game developers from all over the world will make a game in 1 week around a given theme. So definitely join, it's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, have a great week, cheers!